Hello and welcome to North 100, a Canadian Highlander podcast. My name is Serge. Joining me today, I have a Wheeler.
Thank you for having me, Serge. It's great to be here.
And Nelly today.
Hey, thanks, Serge. Glad to be here, too.
I'm super glad you could make it this time. Reminder that North 100 is brought to you by you with your support of Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Welcome to part 2 of our March of the Singular Machine set review. There's only one, not plural. Reminder that our set reviews are not exhaustive. We only talk about the cards that we think are impactful for the format or the ones that we think we're going to get a lot of comments about and we try and get it ahead of. And we're also covering some standout cards from the commander decks. So, for example, there's one card from the comment section, a white card we didn't talk about last time, Excise the Imperfect. Wheeler, take it away.
Standout, I don't know for this one. But one white for an instant. Exile target non-land permanent. Its controller incubates X, where X is its mana value. Again, incubate, you make a you make an artifact token that has an activated ability of pay 2 and put N counters on it. And then you can pay the 2 to turn 2 into 0/0, but the counters let it live. 3 mana removal spells. Not a fan. Especially with Incubate. I've seen this card draw a couple of comparisons to stuff like Declaration in Stone or even Council's Judgment, where you make some trades and like the numbers and the speed of it. But just like Incubate is, I think, a pretty strong mechanic. Not one that we really like are going to get much of in Canlander, but exile your 3-drop. And then you get a 3/3 that you can sit on until you want to activate it.
Yeah, a lot of people miss that. Yeah, you can flip it at instant speed, right?
Yeah, and so just like even when this trades down in mana, it feels bad, right? Like if you're paying 3 mana to get rid of their 2-drop thing, you are losing that mana trade, and then like they also get a thing, even though there's flexibility in exiling it. I'm just not convinced that in a world where, I mean, just play better removal, play cheaper removal.
Sure.
The threats are so good, paying 3 mana for something doesn't really, it's just not going to work out.
All right, so my segue of standout commander cards wasn't great. I should have said we'll also talk about standout commander cards. Here's a card a lot of people mention in the comment sections. Wheeler doesn't like it.
Yeah.
I just don't know how much mono white needs another answer that hits both Time Vault and Merit Lage. That's like, I think that's the case for this card. But we've already got lots of answers for both.
Yeah.
In mono white that are better cards, right?
Yeah. Don't need it.
All right, well, today in part 2, we're going to cover red and green and gold. I kind of just segued into it really awkwardly, but let's get back on the regular rhythm. And let's start off with the actual set review. Nelly, take it away.
Okay, back to the regular base set. It's Bloodfeather Phoenix. 1 and a red for a 2/2 flying Phoenix that can't block. Doesn't have haste initially, but whenever an instant or sorcery spell you control deals damage to an opponent or battle, you may pay red. If you do, return Bloodfeather Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste until end turn. So if you Faithless Looting it away and then you Chain Lightning your opponent for an extra red, you get a 2/2 haste. Seems like a solid role player. And actually, I'd like to throw to Wheeler right away if possible, because I believe you played this on Sunday.
I did. It didn't show up, but it's still pretty good.
This might be my favorite of this Phoenix so far.
Usually they cost more than 2.
Yeah, I liked Arclight Phoenix. I believe that was the one that made splashes in Standard.
Modern and and
but
Standard too.
Like that one, obviously you need to have a density of, and it's a little bit harder to make it work. But this is cool.
Yeah, this is just like in a world where a lot of decks are getting the initiative, having more flyers is nice, and then you kind of have to kill your opponent's threats if they're in red, or else they're just going to run you over. And then any instant or sorcery spell dealing damage to them. This could be like just a Fork Bolt or the splash damage from Arc Trail and a single red. It's just so cheap. This card is just like such a sleek version of the Phoenix kind of build.
I also like this a lot in maybe even a more of a tempo Blue Moon. As just something that comes back, you loot it. You get shrugs from both of you.
I mean, the more cards you have, the more looting cards you have in your deck, the better these get.
Yeah.
Right? So there's that.
Not just already. All right, whatever. Let's move on. We've got Chandra, Hope's Beacon, another 6 mana Chandra. 4 red enters with 5 loyalty. This one has a static ability. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. This ability only triggers once each turn. +2, add 2 mana of any combination of colors. Another plus ability, +1, Exile the top 5 cards of your library. Until end of next turn, you may cast an instant or sorcery from amongst the exiled cards. Wait, not just one. Wow, exile 5. And then minus X, deal X damage to each of up to 2 targets. You know what? For 6 mana, I kind of like everything this Chandra does. It is a 6 mana planeswalker, but you know, big red is a thing. And if you're going over the top, I don't hate this. A lot of the 6 mana Chandras are like, make some elementals and then feel bad about yourself. But this gives you acceleration, which a big deck likes to do. It gets you card advantage, which is kind of fantastic. And it lets you dig and play some stuff. I don't hate this. I think only in big red, though.
If it was a Tinker's Cube podcast, Wheeler could just talk about this one card for the next 45 minutes.
I mean, that static ability is really good.
Oh, yeah.
But it probably should be on a 6 mana card. I can't think of the last time I cast a 6 mana card in our format that wasn't like Primeval Titan.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you're in big red. Also, what's the deal with the name? Chandra Beacon.
So it's funny you should say that, because when you added it to the spreadsheet, you actually had it written as Holmes Beacon, not Hope's Beacon.
Yeah, what the hell? It's covering it up.
Yeah.
I mean, home is, I don't know what I was doing.
That's what it looks like on the card.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair.
Welcome to the new era of Magic, where you literally have to go to some kind of spoiler website to find out what your card's
What the
called,
card's actually
what
called.
the name of the card is. You can't tell just from opening packs.
All right, shall we move on, Wheeler?
Yes, let's. To the best card of the set. Kenra Spellspear. 1 in a red for a 2/2 Jackal Warrior with Trample and Prowess. And you can pay 3 in a Phyrexian blue to transform it, activate only as a sorcery. And it turns into Gataxian Spell Stalker, a 3/3 Phyrexian Jackal with Trample, Ward 2, Prowess, Prowess. And then reminder text of each instance of Prowess triggers separately. So the front on this card is just something that red decks have always really wanted more of, like 2 mana 2/2s with Prowess. You don't get them that often. We have Heartfire Immolator from like M19 that is pretty good, that shows up in aggressive red decks or red X spell decks. And this just puts Trample on it.
They gave us Trample and Prowess. Isn't that like the first time we've even had both those first 2 abilities on a card?
On something this playable, yes. There's Electrostatic Infantry from Dominaria United,
Yeah.
but that is only... that's 1/1 counters, and that's only it's a 1/2
Instants
and
sorceries,
instant or sorcery. But this is like cast your mocks, trigger this. So the front side itself is just great.
Yeah.
Then you have the play pattern of I played this card on 2, my opponent then played something on 2 to the board.
Didn't kill
Idiot.
it. Right.
And then I untap with 3 mana, and I'm like, pay 3, transform this. Now they can't deal with this unless they use basically their entire turn, and their removal spell is Lightning Bolt or Swords or
The
whatever.
Ward 2 is absurd.
Yeah, Ward 2, it's I mean, it's not quite Ward 3, but it's certainly better than Ward 1. That sounded more like that made me sound like more of a jerk than I wanted it to be. But
I mean, honestly, your insight on the format is staggering.
well, I mean, it does break like swords. Paying 2 mana for Swords to Plowshares, like people are used to dealing with Esper Sentinel. And
Yeah,
all
or
that.
Thalia or whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
it's
Yeah.
just whatever. Ward 3 is basically hexproof.
Yeah.
And then Ward 2 is just like, Jesus, I can't pay this. Like, I'm not going to time walk myself just to get rid of it.
I just want to make sure I have my footing here and I'm on stable ground. Which number is bigger again? Is it 2 or 1?
So 1's the lowest.
Okay.
2 is right in the middle because 3 comes after it.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay. Appreciate it.
Yeah, best card in the set. Not to get ahead of that question later, but I might have a different answer. Who knows? This is just so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, moving on, Nelly.
It's Nahiri's Warcrafting. 1 and red, so 3 mana for a sorcery that says Nahiri's Warcrafting deals 5 damage to target creature, planeswalker, or battle. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the excess damage dealt this way. You may exile one of those cards, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You may play the exiled card this turn. Okay, so I'm not initially super impressed, but we have a 3 mana removal spell that can also draw you a card, Anticipate style. You get until, is it the end of your next turn, did I just say?
This turn.
This turn. Okay, yeah. So they all, it's funny. Even just reading the card, I needed to read the card again. So, best case scenario, we're in again, big red. You've got your 6-mana Chandra deck. Digs you into your 6-mana Chandra after you've played all of your Soul Rings and Moxes and whatnot. And you also get to kill their threat. 5 damage is a lot. Takes care of most things, except for Primeval Titan.
Okay.
This is, God, let's not talk about it. Yeah. This, I don't know. I wouldn't play it.
I don't think I'd ever play this.
This is a card that's probably going to be really good in Standard, but
Yeah.
welcome to Canadian Highlander.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, next up
It's
we
like
have...
that.
Oh, pardon me.
Sorry.
Next up, we have the Rampaging Raptor. This is a 4-mana, 4/4 dinosaur for 2 red. It has trample and haste. It has some weird version of fire breathing for 2 and a red to give it +2/+0 until end of turn. And whenever it deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to target planeswalker that target player, target planeswalker that player controls or battle that player protects. Sorry, that awkward templating. I thought I knew how the sentence ended, and it didn't. I mean, the obvious
Right there with
comparison is red. This is red's Questing Beast. I don't think it's as good as Questing Beast, but haste and trample and fire breathing. This is honestly fantastic. Medium red loves this. Big red loves this. I don't think RDW is going to play this. It's a 4-drop. I think Green Red Monsters is going to love this card. I think Gruul Beatdown is going to love this card. If you're a red deck and you like to turn creatures sideways and you reliably play 4-drops, this is going to be an auto include in probably all of your decks.
I think if it, instead of fire breathing, if it said players can't gain life, it might be like the only 4-drop in a red deck wins.
Yeah,
What do
if
you
it
think
had
of
like
that
the Rampaging
theoretical card?
Ferocidon, whatever.
Yeah, if it was like shut down life gain and then had all the other abilities except fire breathing, would you play it in a deck with all the 1-drops?
No, I get nauseous
Still-
when I think about
can't do
anything
it?
above 3 mana, which is a great segue into the next card.
All right.
Get ready for me to dunk on your favorite card from the set, and I'm not doing it just to be a jerk. Urabrask, 2 red for a 4/4 legendary creature Phyrexian Praetor with first strike, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Urabrask deals 1 damage to target opponent, add a red. Pay a red. Exile Urabrask, then return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. Activate only as a sorcery, and only if you've cast 3 or more instant or sorcery spells this turn. And that turns into the Great Work. Thank you. Chapter 1. The Great Work deals 3 damage to target opponent and each creature they control. Chapter 2. Create 3 treasures. And Chapter 3. Until the end of your turn, you may cast instant and sorcery spells from any graveyard. If a spell cast this way would be put into a graveyard, exile it instead. Exile the Great Work, then return it to the battlefield. This card sucks. And it's a card that a lot of people have talked, like they were so excited when this card came out. They're like, Ben, have you seen this card? It's mind-blowing. And it's like, why? It legend with no ETB. Good or bad?
Bad.
Especially when 4 mana.
I just want to say, remind me of all of these incredible Canadian Highlander Bergie decks. Like that's the closest parallel, right? Bergie from Kaldheim?
Not really any.
Yeah.
Not really any.
This Bergie gets a lot of love in the Commander community, I think.
Commander, yeah.
And this is another one of those, so it's going to go into those decks, but we just don't have those decks.
Why do we care about... Sorry, I don't even know what Bergie does.
It
just
has
to show
all
how
the
much-
mana production ability is similar.
So you like cast a spell
Cast
and you
spell,
get a free mana off it?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
There's
We would have broken that card because it's only 3 mana if we were going to.
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's appealing that whenever you do a thing, you get mana back like that. It's like, oh, that's basically I get it for free, and it's like, yeah, that's a powerful ability, but also like, where are you getting these cards?
Yeah. That
and
was my
like-
first question. You're like, it's not an engine. Cause
Yeah, I'm a guy that casts a lot of spells in a single turn, and that is a big ask to cast 3 instants or sorceries in a single turn after you've gotten this into play, and then your payoff is just like a very mid Bonfire of the Damned into like I get to ramp in my deck that just did all these things. Yeah, it's not great. Doesn't have a home. Not good enough. See you, loser.
I feel just because we try not to be overly negative on the show, I
well-
feel that
We is doing a lot of work there.
I know you are. I just want to get ahead of things here. I feel that you are adding an amount of negativity just for the amount of like comments that we would get to try and balance it out. Because the more people that kind of shout about a card like this, because it's fine, but I imagine people think it's better than it is.
You think that this card is not fine, if that's what you mean, or you mean the antagonistic for the sake of engagement?
No,
and,
no.
relaying it? Like, I am being slightly antagonistic regarding this card, because there have been a lot of people clamoring about this card.
Exactly. Yeah.
And poking fun at not necessarily card evaluation, which is obviously difficult, and of course that we don't get everything right. Honk, honk, Jace Vryn's Prodigy, Minsk and Boo. But this is a type of card where, in the context of our format, it does nothing.
Yes.
It just doesn't have a place.
It doesn't have a home. And even if it had a home, it doesn't check off any of the boxes, right? It doesn't check off, like, there's no ETB for a legend at 4 mana plus. It requires additional cards. It passes the bolt test, but it doesn't pass the everybody's playing Flame Slash Fury Pyrokinesis test.
Or Caracas, since you're thinking it.
Or Caracas.
Well, it's the legendary test, yeah.
And then the payoff for getting all these things to work is something that is just it replicates cards that Blue Moon cut years ago. Or just like a Yawgmoth's Will, which we found that Yawgmoth's Will in a deck that isn't running Dark Ritual, Black Lotus, all that jazz is just like not a good Magic card. So yeah, it's just not a good Magic card at all. And I only say this because I care about you and your match records.
Do you think in development maybe First Strike was haste? I wonder.
Now we're talking.
Because it's like, look at 2 red 4/4. It's like, this could be Hero of Bladehold, right? Like, I don't know. We just had that Rampaging Raptor. You know, it's like, if this card had haste instead of First Strike, different tune.
Yeah.
Now we're trying to figure out ways to flip it.
If this card were a different card, I may like it more.
All right.
I got the James laugh on that one.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Take us home in red, Nelly.
It's Volcanic Spite. 1 and a red instant for this deals 3 damage to our creature, planeswalker, battle. You may put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library. If you do, draw a card.
Just a little slower next time.
Sorry, yeah. It deals 3 damage to something, and then you get to put something away and draw a new card for 2 mana at instant speed. What do you think, Wheeler? How much has this card improved or not in Canadian Highlander since you first spoiled it back in Ikoria?
Fire Prophecy?
Fire Prophecy that can hit a battle.
Well,
yeah.
Fire Prophecy couldn't hit a Planeswalker.
Oh, it couldn't hit a Planeswalker either. I'm sorry.
This could hit a Planeswalker.
I thought it just did into a face. Yeah.
No.
Okay, so they've made it.
It's a little bit nicer.
Better.
Yeah, I could see playing this in like a Blue Moon variant with like a mystical tutor spread, ancestral mystical plus another card to let you ancestral recall as many times as possible. That is a version of that deck that is not really showing up as much, but it's also a version of that deck that people hold near and dear to their heart. 2 mana is a lot of mana for this kind of effect.
Do you think
in a way.
the Platinum Imperium decks are trying to find more ways to like tuck it back in, or like any of those decks that you have one of your AB combos, you need to get it back in your library? So you play this and you shuffle it away or whatever?
No, I think those decks that are looking to put specific cards from their hand back into their library are more likely to find that through other pieces of card selection, like Latnam's Legacy or just like brainstorm effects.
They're less interested in strapping an extra mana onto their lightning bolt in order to do it. I did try Fire Prophecy in a blue-red deck that was playing the
same idea.
The Platinum Imperium, and it's still kind of on the chopping block. It's sort of a maybe. This wasn't the best performer in the deck, so it's a mid card. It's not terrible. It's not terrible.
Let's move on to green, and I've got the Deep Root Wayfinder. This is a 2-mana 2/3 Merfolk Scout for 1 and a green. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player or battle, Surveil 1. Then you may return a land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. I like this card. I mean, surprise, surprise, it's a lands card. So it's worth mentioning that the way it's templated, it doesn't count as a land you're playing for a turn, so it's not necessarily a Crucible. This is a triggered ability. It is in some form, some acceleration, and in a format where we have fetch lands and strip mines and wastelands and lots of utility lands that are going to, I mean, even the cycling triomes in the right situation, you're going to have quite a few hits off of this. It's a Merfolk. Green-blue Merfolk is a deck that is actually pretty cool, pretty playable. And I like this we have like a lands mid-range E sort of thing. You get a bit of value out of it because like if you get this down early and you start wastelanding them and you're applying pressure while you're also playing it repeatedly over and over and over, I can also see it get cut. Worth mentioning that the mid-range lands decks would probably just rather have Crucible, where you don't have to connect. You don't have to do the combat damage in order to get that land play. So it's fine. It's probably going to see play in a lot of decks. I don't think it's massively standout or transformative, but it is cool and it is powerful.
It's a 2-drop. 2-drop creatures tend to go kind of a long way, even if they are not as effective at delivering like a payload that you would want for a themed deck, you know?
This could tempo people unbelievably. Like if you got this on turn 1 with a Mox draw and you're on the play and you connect, you could just see how quickly you could start to snowball on something like this. Like if this card setting you ahead is going to be absurd.
Like Strip Mine, Mox Emerald, this? Seriously,
Well,
like if that's your opener, that...
Yeah, fetch land Mox this.
You could win
yeah.
a game on the back of
Oh
that.
my god. Yeah.
Not to be a negative Nancy for this, boys, but we are talking about like, wouldn't it be sick if we had a mock straw with strip? Like,
I mean,
then
yeah,
we could,
like we are literally evaluating it in Magical Christmas Land scenario here. But
even if you were on turn 1 Elf, turn 2 this plus the Wasteland, like that's still going to be pretty good. I don't know.
yeah.
It's obviously it's going to be rare that this thing holds you down plus a land destruction land, and that's the entire game. But the fact that that's an option, this is kind of exciting.
all right, let's move on. Wheeler.
Invasion of Ikoria. X green for a siege battle with 6 defense counters. When Invasion of Ikoria enters the battlefield, search your library and or graveyard for a non-human creature card with mana value X or less and put it into the battlefield. If you do, shuffle your library. And then when you defeat this battle, it turns into Zalortha, Apex of Ikoria. Excuse me. An 8/8 legendary dinosaur with reach that says, for each non-human creature you control, you may have that creature assign its combat damage as though it weren't blocked. So the comparison that is going to pop up is Finale of Devastation, a card that has the X green as in its cost and can also pull from the graveyard and play. There's a little bonus on the end of that too, but for this case, it's just like, what if Green Sun Zenith cost a bit more but put into play? There is a restriction, though. Non-human, and that's pretty significant. For setting up Eternal Witness, setting up Spellseeker, which is a human. Even just like in matchups, you're like, I really need my Thalia. Yep. And you're like a green-white, like Maverick-style deck. The cool stuff that you can do with this card, Vampire Hexmage is the big one, because it tutors up Vampire Hexmage, and then you can either immediately sack it to remove the counters from this to have it transform into an 8/8 reach. But in our format, Caracas exists, and it's a little harder.
4 mana 8/8 is kind of cool. It's like it's a cute combo if you're running those 2 cards anyways.
4 mana 8/8 unblockable is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Kind of unblockable. Looking up something like Elvish Reclaimer, pulling out a Devoted Druid is pretty hot. Both of the sack outlets, Carrion Feeder and Viscera Seer. So there's play to this. The non-human clause is genuinely an issue for certain decks. But if you are like a turbo creature combo deck and that doesn't step on anything you're looking to set up, then sure, go ahead and jam it.
Nelly, you're up.
Next up, it's Invasion of Ixalan. 1 and a green for another siege battle. and it has 4 defense counters. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a permanent card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest of the bottom of your library in any order, and after you've defeated it, you get the Belligerent Regisaur, a 4/3 creature with trample, and whenever you cast a spell, Belligerent Regisaur gains indestructible until end of turn. So a 2-mana cantrip in green that looks at the top 5 and can get you any permanent. Yeah, pretty solid. Would play in a lot of green decks. If your green deck is looking to find permanents and put them on the battlefield, this card might be for you. There's no clause where you could cast it for free if it's your first spell of the
I was
game.
gonna say it's not Once Upon a Time.
But you sometimes get a 4/3 trample out of it as well, so they're trying to balance that.
Permanent, right?
Only a permanent.
Well, I mean, I was saying only a permanent.
But
or sorry,
any
I was saying
permanent-
permanent because like Once Upon a Time is creature or land.
Creature
That's right.
land,
And
yeah.
so the option of
This is
hitting
creature land, planeswalker, artifact,
Exactly.
enchantment.
Yeah, exactly. Get any egg you want
Other
of
bat
the top 5 green card or top 5 cards.
don't
Maybe
pander
I'm
to me.
maybe I'm prejudiced on this because like we don't play. There's a blue enchantment that's 1 in a blue, and you get to like surveil every turn. Then it turns into a land afterwards.
Search for a scan.
Search for Escanta.
Like we don't play Search for Escanta anymore, and I see this kind of being like a worse Search for Escanta. I don't know. You're both excited about this card. I'm very medium on this card.
I mean, I don't know if I'm excited, but I think that
I think there's a really important difference between Search for Escanta and all the other blue cards that replace themselves right away.
Okay.
So that's why I want to put this card next to the Ponders and Oath of Nissas and.
Oh, I understand what you're saying. 'Cause
Yeah,
you get the
just 'cause you
immediate
get the
value,
card
right?
now.
With Search, you do have to wait and accrue value over time.
Yeah, you
That's
actually
fair.
you
That's
actually
fair.
don't get a card back off of Search until you flip it, right? It just
Yeah.
sort of manipulates top of your library for a while, and then boom, you have a land, and then for extra mana, you put a card in your hand. It's pretty slow, but
Sure.
yeah, I don't know. The fact that this is 2 mana always
how many defense counters was this again?
4.
4.
So
It's not bad.
yeah, okay. Wheeler's thinking. I feel like it's definitely worth testing in any of your decks where you're trying to smooth out your draws, and you have mostly permanents.
We're likely undervaluing battles as well in the context of our format.
I'm having so much trouble figuring out if
They're
good or not.
really they're a lot. They're interesting. And like a 4/3 trample that can protect itself on the like it replaces itself. You're a deck that can likely, like if we're a more mid-range-ish version of this deck, we can likely commit some points of damage going at this to then develop our board further.
Yeah, you can look at the top 5 and grab the card that best helps you win the battle.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I like it.
Interesting.
I could see maybe, I don't know, do you think green-red tempo or green-red monsters? I feel like it slots into that deck. Okay.
No, I think that deck's trying to kill people
That's
too
the
much.
thing. Yeah, you're taking a turn off to not play a creature that you could be turning sideways. Is
You get a
odd.
4/3 trample. I don't know. Yeah, okay. The math on battles is confusing.
I think exactly for green-red monsters, that's a deck where like,
You just don't want a 2-mana ponder, you're thinking?
yeah, you just don't need it because you're often looking to jump past 2
Yeah,
already.
That's true.
Go straight from 1 to 3. Yeah.
1 to 3, and maybe I don't know. I don't hate it for something like maybe green white, like a green white deck that would be running like double Mox GT, that kind of spread. Maybe even in a more aggressive lands version, or a more aggressive like mid range version with the lands package. It's kind of nice. You could maybe do this in like I could see maybe playing this in like an initiative deck.
Maybe
Like
initiative. Yeah, because I'm thinking in a land stack, I never care about the 4/3 with trample on the other side,
Yeah.
which is weird. And I don't know.
Could you see Sasha playing this in 4-color Omniscitive?
I mean, I've seen Sasha play some magic cards, so maybe.
Okay, let's
Okay.
move on.
Yeah.
Serge.
Next up, we have Kami of the Whispered Hopes. This is a 3-mana 1/1 spirit for 2 and a green. If 1 or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a permanent that you control, put that many +1 instead, and then tap and add X of any one color, where X is its power. I think this goes in the deck that cares about +1/+1 counters. It's a little clunky. You're making a 3-mana 1/1. It kind of reminds me of some of the classic, like 3-mana grow threats of the one that untaps a whole bunch and tries to get bigger and bigger.
A Wake Thrasher.
Like Wake Thrashers, I think in a sort of similar position of something that can take off but is a little bit slow to get going. And similarly, whatever the green, another blue one is that when it dies, it makes all the tentacle babies.
Squid.
Chasm Skulker.
Chasm Skulker. I'm so glad you're here, Wheeler, that you can parse the Serge names of cards, because like me and card names are not great. This is not hardened scales. I think it's worth mentioning. This is not like a really free and cheap include in that deck that's going to synergize and make everything better. It is slower. It is vulnerable. It is powerful. But buyer beware, I suppose, would be my evaluation on this card ultimately.
It's also a pretty reasonable segue into the next card of Ozolith, the Shattered Spire, a 1 and a green legendary artifact that says if one or more 1/1 counters would be put on an artifact or creature you control, that many +1 counters are put on it instead. And it also has pay 1 and a green, tap, put a 1/1 counter on target artifact or creature you control. Activate only as a sorcery. And then because it's from Ikoria, it has cycling, which I love. This one I'm a bit more interested in trying out than the Kami of Whispered Hopes. Even though this isn't a creature itself, the fact that it has that activated ability, which is pretty nice, especially because a lot of the counters decks have mana dorks, right? They want to accelerate their board, and they have Moxen, they'll have extra mana. But this also means that these are decks that will go tall with a card that you want to put a bunch of counters on, and then you might be stuck with this card and a mana dork, and you're like, oh, well, I could just tap this and make my Llanowar Elf into a 3/3 now, and that's a genuine threat. And if you draw this and you're like, this isn't what I need, then just cycle it away. So yeah, it doesn't have the actual body itself that can build up into a creature, but I think it plays well into the situations where you draw this and your deck's doing the thing you want to do, and it helps you do that. And the situations of like, oh, my opponent answered what my deck wants to do. Well, now I can pivot. I think that's a pretty strong kind of card to have access to for such a focused strategy as like a counters deck.
I just wanted to say, if you're playing like Abzan Hardened Scales, this set obviously brings you 2 more copies of Hardened Scales. So
yeah,
there's a lot of those effects now if you're playing all of them. And I haven't had a match against someone who is doing that, but it feels like it's got to be starting to get pretty consistent.
4-color counters has already won a tournament this year at Yellow Jacket Comics and Toys.
Nice.
I think the best colors are green, white, and then bug. Would you agree with that?
The one the one that won was 4-color no black, which was wild. But no 4-color no white.
4-color no white.
It was wild. Not emblematic of what that archetype necessarily looks like. I like green white as the base.
Yeah.
And then you can literally pick your poison for the supporting color. Red's good, black's good, blue's good. I just named all the colors of Magic.
They're all good colors. My favorite has always just been that snake from Kaladesh. That's
the
like
green black one. Yeah.
Winding Constrictor is my favorite version of this effect, so I would always want to be in black.
My favorite version of this effect is Gavany Township.
I like that one too.
All right.
Okay,
let's move on.
I'm
Ellie.
so happy to see my boy back. It's Polukranos Reborn. Surely back from the land of the dead of Theros, nothing terrible could happen to Polukranos, right? Green, 3 pips for a 4/5 reach legendary Hydra. I'm already sold. I'm in. Sounds good. Let's attack on turn 3. It has 6 and a white Phyrexian, so 7 mana or 6+2 life. Transform Polukranos Reborn, activate only as a sorcery, and on the backside, you get Polukranos, Engine of Ruin. Oh no! They gave him the Phyresis! They keep killing Polukranos!
Look at how they massacred my boy.
6/6 reach lifelink. Okay, I'm still in. When Polukranos, Engine of Ruin, or another non-token Hydra you control dies, create a 3/3 green and white Phyrexian Hydra creature token with reach and a 3/3 green and white Phyrexian Hydra creature token with lifelink. A new fancy, probably overall slightly worse Wormcoil engine on the back. Worth noting, it's not an artifact. It's a legendary creature Phyrexian Hydra, and the tokens aren't artifacts either. So that's neat. It's not an artifact, but in other news, it acts a lot like a Wormcoil. Better at blocking, slightly worse at trading with creatures, but you do get 12 power.
Go back to the front side.
Go back to the front side.
Yeah, there's the stuff.
Yeah, I do like this card a lot. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. If you've got a Llanowar Elves, you should maybe consider this one.
Hey Nelson, where are you playing this triple green pipped card?
It's gonna be in a green deck, Wheeler.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the Llanowar tribe mana cost, and I like the deck that's playing like 12 1-drop green creatures that make mana. Been known to play those cards a fair bit. Get this down early and attack.
I just imagine myself sitting across from Jeremy White and him fair lotusing this on me on turn 1 or something like that, and me being like, really? It's turn 1 and you have a 4/5? And him just like shrugging and then turning his hat always lucky or whatever.
Never didn't have it. Honestly, as far as triple green 4-power creatures come, like from recent sets or whatever, this one's not the best. Like I think the troll is better, and I think that that hard to block elf is probably better
Steel
too.
Leaf Champion.
Steel Leaf Champion.
Hey,
Yeah,
you just want redundancy though.
yeah, exactly. But this one's still good.
Yeah.
And like the activation and the weird worm coil on the backside is going to come up every now and then, and
Yep.
that kind of almost makes up for not being as good as the Steel Leaf and the troll. So yeah, thumbs up. Will die to this card.
All right, next up, Sandstalker Moloch? How do I pronounce that word?
Moloch.
Moloch. This is a 3-mana 4/2 lizard for 1 green. It has flash. When it enters the battlefield, and if an opponent casts a blue or black spell this turn, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a permanent from amongst them and put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Now, I have played green-white, I hate blue and black decks. And I played that deck specifically to try and dethrone Wheeler when he was on a particularly hot run of like winning tournaments at YJ. And you know what happened when I put this deck together?
How'd it go, Serge?
I never got paired against Wheeler. And so the problem with narrow hate cards in a format without sideboards is sometimes you don't end up getting paired against the deck that you're trying to hate out.
This is such an embarrassing card against mono red.
Yeah.
Like it's a 3-mana dice to shock or your Jackal. Well, Jackal Pup, they at least take 4, but you know.
No matter what, this card's trading with a 1-mana red creature.
Yeah.
Or red card of some kind, right?
And that's sort of where I was slowly getting to with that is that it is good in the right matchup, but if you can't guarantee that matchup, then you're overpaying for something.
Honestly, the hate versus blue and black decks is already achieved with flash. Like if you just give me better stats for 1 green flash lizard, then we could be talking.
But we
Since
don't
we
even
don't have sideboards, this card.
We don't even play Wolfear Avenger anymore though, which was a 3/3 with flash and it has regenerate, you know?
Sure.
I mean, this does replace itself, but I think it's too the strength that these decks have against blue and black decks is that they're just faster and that everything's a 2-for-1 and that it's 2023. And so you don't need a card that directly says haha, I got you, because that's just the nature of every card in this color, you know?
Yeah.
Sorry, I just choked on my water.
It's okay. We all get emotional about Great Sable Stag. Are you okay?
Yeah. All right, we can probably move on.
Great. Oh boy, another breeder.
Hooray.
Vorinclex. 3 green for a 6/6 legendary creature. Phyrexian Praetor. Trample and Reach. When it ETBs, you search your library for up to 2 forest cards. Reveal them. Put them into your hand. Then shuffle. Then pay 8. 6 green. Exile Vorinclex, return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control, activate only as a sorcery, and it turns into the Grand Evolution. Chapter 1, mill 10 cards, put up to 2 creature cards from among the milled cards onto the battlefield. Chapter 2, distribute 7+1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures you control. In Chapter 3, until end of your turn, creatures you control gain, pay 1 generic. This creature fights target creature you don't control. And then you exile the Grand Evolution and return to the battlefield. Notably, there's a period after that ability they gain. It just does it once it hits Chapter 3.
Also, notably, when you say until end of turn, creatures you control, that's looking at the set of creatures that you had on the battlefield as that ability resolved, and this is going to turn back into a creature right after that, but you won't have the ability on the return
On
Vorinclex to fight. Or if you're a judge and I got that wrong, let me know in the comments, but I'm pretty sure that's right.
I believe that's
Yeah.
right. So this is kind of funny because it's another Predator that I don't particularly think is playable, but I will say this. I like this card more than most people, and I give it some extra points just because it's a big green idiot, where it draws you 2 cards, and even if those 2 cards are lands, that's fine.
I'm like struggling to think of where we could put this because it doesn't seem that bad, but I don't know if it has a home.
I mean,
going back to the lands you draw, we have Triomes. Those
Right.
could turn into cards. You get to do that
Yeah.
old Tithe line, right?
You've
'Cause it
definitely
doesn't
got
say
6
basic.
mana,
Yeah.
right?
yeah, it doesn't say basic forest, which is pretty relevant. This is something where, I mean, I gave Defiler of Vigor the same kind of criticisms when it came out in Dominaria, not remastered, United, whatever the hell that's.
No, you just Dominator United. You thought that card was garbage, right?
I just didn't think it was necessary. And I think
Right.
the same thing goes with this, is that like we can read the stat line and the mana cost and be like, okay, this is actually pretty reasonable. But then tell me the 5-drop green
Yeah,
creatures
yeah.
that see play in our format.
Yeah, like just pull up Elder Gargaroth and tell it that you have to bench it for this thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, is this taking place over Gargroth or Titania? No. What?
Yeah, so
Coke
you get
or
2
Kogla.
lands. I have 10
Yeah.
5/3s. Right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, Koko's the 6-drop, but like it's not slotting in. That said, this card is less embarrassing than say Urabrask or Jin Gataxias is in that, and I mean that mostly as like I'm ready to die to this card because it's more difficult to answer. Its ability feeds into its second ability more naturally just by letting you hit land drops, where like obviously Caracas and this is still pretty funny, but you like you said, you could set up your duels, you could find a Dryad Arbor, there's some other game to that, and it has trample, meaning that your opponent's young Pyromancer tokens or whatever aren't going to be that great. There are probably better things to play. I could even think of like the Thrun from the last from Mom. That's a card I'd like to apologize. And I'd like to personally apologize to Pro Tour Day 2 competitor Noel Robin for the slander on that card, because that card is sick.
Yeah.
The new 5-mana Thrun. And so I would play that over this card every time, I think. Yeah. Sorry, Predator fans.
I just want to say, like, if you open this and you don't own an Elder Gargaroth, you're putting together green-red monsters or like Big Jund or something, like...
Pick a 4-drop instead.
Wow. All right, take us home with the last card, Nelly.
It's close. with
Last
that
green
one.
card.
We've got Renin Realmbreaker, 3 mana, 1 green for a legendary planeswalker Ren. With static, lands you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. +1, up to 1 target land you control becomes a 3/3 elemental creature with vigilance, hexproof, and haste until your next turn. It's still a land. -2, mill 3 cards. You may put a permanent card from among the milled cards into your hand. And -7, you get an emblem with, you may play lands and cast permanent spells from your graveyard. Starts off with 4 loyalty. Okay, so some exciting things here. Fixing your mana, making creatures that attack as a tick-up. Getting back a permanent card from among the milled cards after you milled 3. So
That's a little awkward.
yeah, this isn't a regrowth for 3 mana. You can't just get any card that you want. It has to be a permanent, and it has to be one of the top 3 on top of your deck. That said, a lot of green decks, there is at least 1 permanent from among every 3 random cards on average. So kind of a draw mode. I think this card has a lot of potential. I just don't know if I'm necessarily kicking another Planeswalker out of Craterhoof to play it. Maybe does like a Sandy B deck want
I see
card like this?
Wheeler's ready
Does
to
it
say
just not have
something.
a home?
Oh,
Is it just like the last card?
No,
Okay,
I want Serge to.
ahead, Serge.
Yeah.
I would play this maybe in only one deck, and that's Super Friends, just for the color
okay.
fixing, because it does
Okay,
sort of like an
yeah.
Oath of Nissa. That's about it. I don't think I'd play it anywhere else.
The second ability really feels like a nerf, hey?
I will throw a bone to the people that are looking to play this, is that it is a 3-mana planeswalker that can pass the turn with 5 loyalty and that can fix your mana to be perfect. And those are all very appealing things. And that, like, yeah, if you get this out early enough ahead of curve, it can be difficult for a lot of archetypes to deal with. That said, there are a lot of other cards that meet all of those qualifications.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at this giggling, thinking that never in my lifetime did I think we would get, like, there's this card called Joiner Adept, and it's from 5th Dawn. It's 1 in a green for a 2/1 that says lands you control have that ability.
Okay.
And that card, it got reprinted in 10th edition. This card was like $25 in 2003 or whatever, and saw 0 play. Commander was not a thing, and Ed couldn't stay in stock at
I
Yellow
didn't see
Jacket.
this card until like 2015 or something, and there was just never one under the glass.
You just couldn't, because that ability is so appealing. I remember opening it and being like, oh my god, perfect. And it's like the real way to deal with your mana problems: build your mana base better and mulligan more. Like, sometimes it might pop up, but there are just other there are ways that you can fix that before you even start laying cards on the table. And this, to me, I looked at it, I'm like, oh, they decided to do for the 30th anniversary, they made a new Joiner Adept to try and convince people to buy it. And this card will be $1 bajillion or whatever. And like, probably not the right card to play, but at least now it's been updated to like, I could see someone being convinced that like they get this on turn 2 while their opponent mulled to 5, and they're like, oh my god, this card is sick, dude. Sorry.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to gold cards. I got the first one. No? What's up?
No,
I
you
just
did.
said that one. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I just did this one.
Okay,
I just did
sorry.
this one.
I was setting up to
I
be
said
like
some things.
My apologies. I was excited
The
because
monkey is mine, okay?
I
The
just-
monkey is mine!
there was a card. I was going to be positive about it.
Brawl and Carry Zev. Woo-hoo. 3 mana, 2/4 legendary human for 1, a blue, and a red. First strike and menace. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery card each turn, you may cast a spell with lesser mana value that shares a card type with it from your hand without paying its mana cost. Sorry, that's very wordy. If you don't, create First Mate Ragavan, a legendary 2/1 red monkey pirate creature token. It gains haste until end of turn. I like this. This is cost efficient. It does a lot of stuff. It slices, it dices, it has its own monkey. I don't think you need to worry about always maximizing that value. I think this card does enough that you're fine when it works. You don't need to always like sequence your turns such that you play a 3-drop and that you have a 2-drop afterwards. Like if you get stuff out of that, awesome. If you don't, here's a monkey.
There's a thing that pops up with Magic cards that is a product of like how they need to actually write it out. But for Magic players' evaluation, one of the best things to do is just flip these abilities and read it as whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery, you make this monkey. But if you don't want to, you can cast this card from your hand if you have it. Like you can double up on the spells. Because the best way to play this is just leave it, just don't attack with it. And then they're like, oh, I can never attack into you. You have a 2/4 with first strike. You have the ability to make an instant speed 2/1 to block. Like imagine you're a creature deck and they have a Brawl and Carry Zev and like open mana and you attack with your team and you're like, okay, well, I'll cast the lightning bolt, kill that creature, make a new blocker, block this. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
First strike plus lightning bolt away your 5/5.
And then
Block your 3/2 with monkey.
and then it just starts attacking for 4 a turn if you need. Or just chipping in for 2, and if you're not casting a spell and you have reactive spells, then great.
Would you put it in Jeskai? Blue Moon? Where do you see this card?
Definitely Blue Moon.
I think I could play it in Blue Moon. I don't mind that.
Yeah, I like it in blue-red. Maybe Grixis.
What about the fast version of Blue Red too? Like the
It's
Blitz
3
deck,
mana.
maybe?
Well, that off a Mox, yeah. I like this.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's bulky. It's got
yeah.
booty.
It's got booty.
Nice to have some 4 toughness creatures in the Blitz deck sometimes.
All right, next up, Wheeler.
Botanical Brawler. Green and white for a 0/0. Huh? Just kidding. It enters the battlefield with 2 1/1 counters on it and has trample. And says whenever 1 or more 1/1 counters are put on another permanent you control, if it's the first time 1/1 counters have been put on that permanent this turn, put a 1/1 counter on Botanical Brawler. So this is a green-white counters card that has counters that says if you're putting counters on other things, put counters on me, and also I have trample, which is really good in a deck that's going tall. Great. Love to see it.
My
This
bad.
is my kind of card.
I said there were 2 new hardened scales. There's 2.5 new hardened scales.
Yeah,
Two
I
and
mean,
a
this
half.
isn't hard, but it counts. How relevant is that it's an elemental? Because I'm always watching for elementals. We don't care at all. I don't think elementals do anything with
I
plus one,
have
plus
some
one
bad
counters.
news. As soon as you said that, I thought in my head, I'm like, oh, there are a bunch of warriors that also care about counters, aren't there?
All right, that shows where that's at. Perfect. All right, no more questions.
No.
All right, Nelly.
Drana and Linvala. 1 white, black, 4 mana for a legendary creature, Vampire Angel. It's a 3/4 with flying and vigilance. Awesome. Solid card. Oh, wait, there's more. Activated abilities of creatures your opponents control can't be activated. No, Linvala, stop posing all of my mana dorks. Drana and Linvala has all activated abilities of all creatures your opponents control. No! Drana, stop stealing my mana dorks. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to activate those abilities. Okay, so pretty hard to cast, right? 2 white pips and a black. But if Linvala is good in the metagame, this card is even better when you can cast it. I don't see a ton of homes for this immediately, to be honest. I haven't run into a lot of Linvalas lately, but I have, lost some games that otherwise looked unlosable to Linvala, Keeper of Silence, in the past.
Black, white, death, and taxes.
Yeah, sure. If your Death and Taxes deck is splashing black, this is a pretty strong hose effect. And yeah, really nice body. I don't know. The classic Resto Angel / Linvala body.
Mm-hmm.
Buff Angel. Is anyone cast this? Yeah, I don't know. Do we expect that black white
I like
Death and
that.
Taxes is gonna
I mean, I
See
agree
a
with
lot
your
of
card
play lately.
evaluation.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Okay. Yep, solid role player.
All right. Next up, we have the Halo Forager. This is a 3-mana 3/1 fairy rogue for 1, a blue, and a black. It has flying. When it enters the battlefield, this is just, I'm going to TLDR, this is the most clunky way I've ever seen them write target instant or sorcery in your graveyard gets flash.
Right.
Back.
Gets flashback. Yeah, it effectively gets it flashback. I don't know why it doesn't say flashback, but it has flashback.
It's around color.
Gets around colors and also wants you to cast stuff in your opponent's graveyards and 0 mana spells.
Hold on. You may cast target instant or sorcery with mana value X from a graveyard without paying its mana cost. Gets around your opponent's graveyard and casts zeros. Oh, so the whatever that restore balance is suddenly on the menu.
That's the 0.
All right. And
Ancestral Vision.
Ancestral Visions or something. Dude, look, I panicked. It was the first card I could think of. All right.
Wait, are we Halo Foraging into Genesis? What's that card called?
No!
What's that called?
Hypergenesis.
Hypergenesis?
All right.
Faithless looting my Hypergenesis? Halo Forager? Put the big into play?
This card is cool. This card is very neat. I think a lot of the decks that you're playing blue-black flyers in, you are happily going to include this. It doesn't quite do a Snapcaster. A lot of the strength of Snapcaster is the fact that it has flash, and so you could cast your instants to get way more value out of your counterspells and stuff like that. Unless you have an Aether Vial, this isn't really going to help you out. But this offers a tremendous amount of flexibility, and people who've played our format for a long time know about the power of 3/1 flyers. Most of the 3/1 flyers we play have flash. Again, not a Snapcaster, but this card is very cool and very neat. I don't know if there's much else to add than that.
It's just, I think it's sorry. I do want to add one thing.
Please.
I don't like contextualizing this as a Snapcaster mage. I like seeing it as a Direfleet Daredevil.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
I was actually going to bring up Direfleet Daredevil as well. I mean, that card only hits your opponent's graveyard.
Yes.
But yeah.
It's a modern day Direfleet Daredevil,
yeah.
which is wild to say. That was 6 years ago. Christ.
I agree this card's solid, but I also see an immediate home for it, and that's Grixis 2-for-1s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, who's next? Is it Wheeler?
Wheeler.
Invasion of New Phyrexia. X, white, and a blue. For a battle, it's a siege with defense counters equal to 6. When Invasion of New Phyrexia enters the battlefield, create X 2/2 white and blue knight creature tokens with vigilance. And then if you defeat this, it turns into Teferi, Akosa of Zalfir. 4 loyalty, +1, draw 2 cards, and then discard 2 cards unless you discard a creature card. -2, you get an emblem with knights you control, get +1/+0, and have ward 1. Excuse me.
Very nice word.
And -3, tap X creatures you control. When you do, shuffle target non-land permanent opponent controls with mana value X or less into its owner's library.
Yeah.
This is okay. So my gut reaction is bad.
Yes.
My gut reaction is I'm not going to play this Magic card. But I don't think it's as cut and dry as all the laughter has led us to believe.
No, that's fair.
Because I think that if we like a place to play this, also not Night Tribal, worst mana base of any deck I've ever played.
I was gonna say that you brought Night Tribal to an FNPF, right?
Dreadful.
Yeah.
And adding blue doesn't exactly help the
'cause
deck
it's
with
white,
black,
red.
white.
Yeah.
But like the front side, the Invasion of New Phyrexia, again, it's the fact that it's a battle that it's like self-fulfilling, right? You create the board to defeat the battle to get this is appealing. It just it sets you up for success and does so with a single card. And 2/2s with Vigilance are pretty strong, right? Especially in a deck that presumably is going to have white and blue, which means you can clear the board and kind of control how things are developing to a certain way. It's just right now a blue-white control deck, like they're either going a bit leaner on cards like White Plume Adventurer, Seasoned Dungeoneer, like playing into the initiative cards themselves, or they are going bigger in the sense, and not this big, they're going bigger in the sense of like Gideon Jura, Shorakai Genesis Engine from the Kamigawa Commander set. So this is just kind of in this awkward spot of like none of what blue-white decks are doing really want this necessarily, and it's like card 107 almost, right?
If I'm a blue-white control deck and I want to make 1,000,000 creatures or even a reasonable amount of creatures, I'm either playing Entreat the Angels, which I think is probably just a better win condition than this because you can set it up cooler, or I'd play White Sun Zenith over this because it's instant speed. And when's the last time you've heard White Sun Zenith? Like 2016?
Oh, I visited a retirement home last week. And
Well, they made Secure the Wastes, which was like a little more flexible.
Oh, they make 1/1s. I said White Sun because it's 2/2s.
No, for sure. White Sun's about equally relevant in the conversation right now, right? Like I mentioned Secure the Wastes, but it's not like that's seen a lot of play lately either.
yeah, I don't know what the hell you two are talking about. Monastery Mentor, anybody?
Yeah.
More realistic token generation?
Has that also not cropped up very much lately either? I haven't even sat across from a blue-white control player in
It has. What I'm saying is that there are other tools that can kind of replicate the going wide or like what you look for a finisher, but they also just like the play patterns that the blue-white, the like crossroads that blue-white decks get to with how they want to build themselves or play out their cards. And Teferi's just like in the middle of being like, do I go here or do I go here? And then it's just like, hey, dude, we left you behind. You were too late.
Right.
Yeah. Just
But Monastery Mentor, like, good example of a way to build a board and have a bunch of tokens without
that is
fully
more
tapping out for your turn.
Yeah.
Okay,
right, you're up, Nelly.
We've got Mist Meadow Vanisher. Is it a Kithkin? Yes, a Kithkin. 2 and a white-blue hybrid, so could be in a white or blue deck. 3/2 Kithkin Wizard, and whenever Mist Meadow Vanisher becomes tapped, exile up to 1 target non-land, non-token permanent. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So not a blink, a flicker, or whatever you want to call that.
Target non-land.
Up to 1 target non-land, non-token permanent. Yeah. So you can kill your opponent's tokens here if you want, or you can just reset stuff.
No,
it says non-token.
Yeah.
Non-land, non-token. Okay, good. We're reading the card.
What's the 3/1?
It takes only 2 reads at least.
Flicker Wisp.
This is a Flicker Wisp.
Right.
This is a Flicker Wisp that you can do some broken stuff with.
Right.
That's how I see this card.
It says, yeah, so it's when it becomes tapped, not when it ETBs. So a little bit more risk, but a higher reward. If you've got, right back from this set, the Convoke spells, or just the freedom to attack without losing this creature mid-combat, or the various other ways that we tap creatures, be it the Mana Rock from what was it? Theros
Springleaf
originally?
Drum.
Yeah, Springleaf
Yeah.
Drum.
Originally from Lorwyn.
Lorwyn, right? Lorwyn initially. Oh, there you go.
See? Ah.
Synergies. There you go. Or various other costs that require
Smuggler's
tapping.
Copter.
Smuggler's Copter, exactly. Crewing your vehicles. Getting a flickerless trigger every turn with your part B of this engine. Really great. I would probably look at my Band Blink deck and see if there's a way I could get enough ways to activate this to make it work, because having more engines for flickering, like your Soul Herder or your Eldrazi Displacer, can be really great. Yeah, I don't know, any other homes for this, or...
It's worth mentioning this is one of the commander cards. This isn't from the main set. Just if people are like, well, I haven't opened this in any of my draft sets.
Right, okay. Worth noting. Great, yeah, seems like a solid potential role player.
All right, the final card we're going to talk about today, and this is a huge flavor fail. I don't understand this, is Thalia and the Gitrog. So clearly the lore here is that the Gitrog has regurgitated it, because it's a long-established North 100 lore that the arm that was hanging out of the Gitrog's mouth in the beginning was Thalia's arm. So I guess they've reconciled.
It was just a love bite.
Yeah. 4 mana, 4/4 legendary human frog horror. For 1, a white, a black, and a green. It has first strike and death touch. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. And whenever Thalia and the Gitrog monster attacks, sack a creature or land, and then draw a card. It's a lot of words. I mean, people are starting to roast us in the comments. They're like, I can see it has a lot of words on it. That's a lot of powerful abilities that are all neat there. I think this has maybe a home. It's a little clunky. Would be in an Abzan lands mid-range deck.
5-color amazing stuff.
I don't think it's good enough for like a 5-color good stuff. Like, so original Gitrog pops off with the land's ability, because you can play an additional land. It taxes you a land every turn, but you can do some really busto stuff.
Combos. There's infinite, right?
Right. And even just not even infinite, just like value, just the value you see there. The fact that you have to sacrifice a creature every time means you don't really want to accelerate this out by itself, a la like a death and taxes style thing. I mean, you could sack your own lands to hopefully get some value to perpetuate it, but it's clunky. But like, I like this maybe if you're also playing like Anafenza, the 3-color Anafenza, not the white one, and you have a little bit of a lands thing going on. I don't know. I'm kind of medium on it, to be perfectly honest. You're looking at me like I'm out of my mind.
Yeah.
Do you slam dunk love this card?
Well, I don't, not necessarily a slam dunk, but I do think it's quite good. Abzan lands mid-range, still the same place where I want to see it.
Yeah.
It does exactly what you want out of that kind of card. Lets you get extra value on, your recursion with the playing. It itself isn't a crucible, but playing out additional lands is just a thing that deck already wants to do.
Yep.
It stops or affects your opponent's development of their board, both the creatures and the lands, something that deck wants to do. It puts lands into your graveyard and draws a card, which is something that deck wants to do. And it attacks and keeps the initiative extremely well.
First strike, death touch.
Yeah, it plays offense and defense really well.
And it is a 4-mana legend without an ETB, but we are a deck built around blowing up our opponent's lands. We can deal with that Caracas. That's kind of the point.
So I gave it like a B-. You give it like a B+.
Well, it sounds like it's specific to the one deck. Like you see it playing in Abzan lands mid-range, but maybe not. But
I could also see like, and I wouldn't be surprised if an Abzan land mid-range deck didn't play this as well. Like I could see this being on the chopping block, because I just don't know if it's impactful enough at 4. Like I think you play this card if you think it's like haha funny, or no.
No, there's nothing funny about my money, Serge. I'm playing this card to win. Like if I'm playing Abzan lands and I'm looking to win, I'm playing this card, because it also mucks opponents trying to use the initiative. Like you play the initiative, you keep it. If they have a haste creature try and take it back, they're not getting it. If they play their own initiative creature try to take it back, it comes into play tapped. So then you can attack with this or your other thing to get it back, or hold the fort down.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I think it's like the confluence of like the incredible body hate stuff and the lands
that
value.
body.
Yeah, it just does.
That body.
I'll take you on that. I'll say I was wrong. I'll warm up to Thalia and the Gitrog. Maybe I'm just so shocked by the name. All right, let's do some high-level questions just about the set really quickly. Battles. I don't understand battles. I don't know how many of them do you actually think we're going to see play in our set? Like, how impactful do you think they're going to be mechanically for Canadian Highlander?
3.
And like, do you think they'll see play a lot, or 3 might see play?
I think they'll see a reasonable amount of play depending on the metagame and the pilot. Yeah.
And you expect people to like do the full battle mechanic and flip them too, or just there's enough impact on the front side that's...
I think you're going to want to get everything you can out of that card, but
Sure.
again, it's how it plays out. It's not that's not really something that you can write down and say that this is going to happen every time, right? Especially with a card type like battles. They're so contextual to how the board develops, how the game progresses. I mean, we see matches where it just gets to a top deck war after 2 attrition decks kind of slam each other, and then you find yourself sitting with a creature while your opponent doesn't have one, and it's like, well, they're at 16, and I'm at 15, and I have a 2-power creature. I'm just going to attack this battle twice, and then really solidify a board presence.
And then try and take over from there. That's fair. Do you have any opinions on battles?
I think it's worth noting that we didn't know exactly how good the initiative would be when it first came out. Like, that's like recent and really relevant in the format now and fresh in everyone's mind. And it has something in common with battles where it's like, yeah, this is better if you can like keep board control. Like if you're able to either attack back or prevent your opponent from attacking you. Battles are different. It's not the exact same thing. I know it's apples and oranges, but battles also want you to have some board control. But a bunch of them help you get it. So, you know, I think probably we're going to warm up to them. I think we'll see. I don't know if it's that many more different battles. Like 3 might be correct. That might be the right answer of like the commonly played battles in Canadian Highlander. But maybe they'll be in a bunch of different decks. Yeah.
All right, Wheeler. Overall thoughts on the set?
So I know I've been a bit cruel to some cards. But that's because I tend to value something like Botanical Brawler, the green-white counters card. I think that is more interesting and impactful for the format than something that is a flashy mythic that people are going to flock to necessarily.
Sure.
Because we don't need a new fancy red top-end card unless it is like Minsk and Boo tier. We already have those. We already have those role players. But for decks that are kind of floating at like tier 2 that have been getting a lot of push in recent years, like counters being the best example, the most pertinent for this, that's more exciting because that's exactly the kind of cards that they're wanting to see. And that's a design trend we've seen the last couple of sets. And so while like the raw cards that are playable from this set is lower than your average, that's cool. That's okay. It's fine by me. The set's all right.
Nelly.
I am sort of secretly hoping that the Praetors are going to get a bit more love. I don't think we were unfair with them today. I know I wasn't here when we were analyzing Elishor and Jin Gitaxis, but I just like the flavor of those cards. I like the way that they gave us different versions of them recently and that they transformed into sagas. So that's a hope for me. Overall, I think the design of the set is really beautiful. Like I thought it was a well put together set with the different themes of like the battles and the invasions and stuff and the transform creatures. And yeah, I'm just really looking forward to wastelanding someone every turn with Deeproot Wayfinder.
All right, any last final thoughts? Anything you want to say to Mum? Hi, Mom. No.
Hi, Mom.
I'm on camera.
I didn't know you watched North 100, a Canadian Highlander podcast, but good for you. Let's talk about it next time at dinner.
All right, well then, let's take it home. Thank you so much for watching our March of the Machine set review. The 2 parts have been an absolute delight, and we appreciate you hanging out. If there's any cards you think we missed, let us know in the comments down below. We do read them and engage with them. One time I said we read every comment, and somebody got mad at us. I'm like, yeah, we do.
I read every comment, and I remember you by your name and your avatar.
Do with that information what you will.
Some say it's a curse. Yeah.
I've been Serge, joined by Wheeler
Thank you for having me, Serge. It was great to be here.
and Nelson.
Thanks so much, Serge.
Shout out to James on Tech. Reminder that everything we do is brought to you by you through support of the Patreon over at patreon.com/LearningReadyRun. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.